You said something on that lot, something that felt like small talk, and the salesperson smiled, nodded, and excused himself for a minute. You probably thought he was checking on availability, getting a key, maybe grabbing a coffee. He wasn't. He was walking back to his manager and telling him exactly what you just said. And that conversation, the one you weren't part of, is the one that shaped everything that came after. Now, I know what you might be thinking. You've bought cars before, maybe a dozen of them. You know not to show too much excitement. You know to walk away if the number doesn't work. And you're not wrong. That baseline awareness matters. But what I'm going to show you today aren't the obvious things. These are behaviors that feel completely reasonable. Some of them feel like smart moves. And every single one of them is something I recognized immediately from the other side of the desk and knew exactly what to do with. My name is Ray Voss. I spent 26 years inside dealerships, sales floor, finance office, sales management, and the last stretch as a general manager running a 3-store group. I left in June of last year. I don't have an employer to protect anymore. That matters, because what I'm about to tell you I couldn't have said before. There are 6 things buyers do, consistently, across every dealership I ever worked in, that the salesperson loves. Not because buyers are foolish, because these behaviors are human. And the business learned, over a long time, how to work with them. You're going to recognize yourself in some of these. That's fine. Recognition is the whole point. Let's get right into it and uncover the truth behind these secrets. The first thing is the one that happens before you've even looked at a single car. You're on the lot, maybe 60 seconds into the conversation, and the salesperson asks what seems like a perfectly reasonable question. So what are you looking to spend each month? And you tell him. Because why wouldn't you? You've got a budget. You're being responsible. You're not here to waste anyone's time. Here's what just happened. The moment you named that monthly number, the negotiation changed shape. Not the price of the car, the payment. And those are not the same thing. What the salesperson does with that number is bring it back to his manager, and from that point forward, the entire deal gets structured around hitting your ceiling. Not beating it, hitting it. Because if you told him you can do $600 a month, nobody in that building is going to find you a $540 payment. They're going to find you a $598. And they'll get there however they need to. Longer loan term, higher interest rate, a product buried in the back end. The monthly number you gave them is the finish line they're running toward. You just told them where it was. The fix is simple, and it works. When they ask about monthly budget, you say this: I'm focused on the price of the car right now. We can talk about payments once we agree on a number. That's it. It puts the negotiation back where you have leverage, on the total price. They'll try again. Say it again. The second thing is something buyers say because they think it protects them. You walk onto the lot, the salesperson approaches, and you say, I'm just looking, no rush, early stages. You think you've removed the pressure. You think you've signaled that you won't be pushed around. What you've actually done is handed the salesperson something more useful than urgency. You've given him time. And time on a car lot belongs to the store. A buyer in a hurry is harder to manage. They've got a constraint. A buyer with no deadline can be walked through the full process at exactly the pace the salesperson sets. There's a sequence every dealership runs: the lot walk, the test drive, the desk, the manager introduction, the finance office. That sequence is designed to take 2 to 3 hours. Every minute you spend invested in it makes it harder to walk away. When you told him you weren't in a rush, you told him the clock was his. You don't need to pretend you're in a hurry. Just don't volunteer your timeline in either direction. Come in with a specific question or a specific vehicle in mind. Specificity signals research. It signals that you're harder to redirect. That alone changes how the conversation goes. The third thing is the trade-in, and this one costs people real money. It's not that bringing a trade is wrong, it's that bringing it up early is. Most buyers mention the trade in the first few minutes. It feels natural. The salesperson asks, conversation flows, and suddenly you're talking about your current vehicle, before you've agreed on anything about the new one. I had a customer years ago, I'll call him Frank, retired guy, drove in a clean older pickup he'd taken good care of. He mentioned it walking across the lot, proud of it, and he should have been. But by the time Frank sat down at the desk, my used car manager had already looked it up, run comps, and had a number in his head. When the offer came, the trade looked strong. Frank felt like he'd done well on it. What hadn't moved at all was the price of the vehicle he was buying. He shook hands. He was happy. And the deal hit every number the store needed it to hit. But you don't need me in the room for this. Here's how you do it yourself. When the trade comes up early, you say, "Let's settle on the car first. I'll tell you about the trade once we agree on the price." 2 sentences. Hold that line. They'll come back to it. Hold the line. I'll be fair here. Not every salesperson is working an angle on your trade. Some stores are more straightforward than others, and I've known genuinely decent people in this business my whole career. But the structure of how deals get built creates pressure to use every variable the buyer puts on the table. Your trade is a variable. Keep it separate. If you're finding this useful, stick around. I post here when I've got something worth saying. There's a lot more where this came from. Those first 3 are all things that happen before you sit down. Now let's talk about what happens once you do. The 4th thing is one I want to be careful about, because it's actually a smart move up to a point. Getting pre-approved through your own bank or credit union before you walk into a dealership is genuinely good advice. I'd tell anyone to do it, but there's a version of this that works against you, and it's when you walk in, announce your pre-approval in the first 5 minutes, and treat it like a door you've already closed and locked. Here's the problem. The finance office door is not closed. You're going in there regardless. Most dealerships require it, even if you have outside financing. There's paperwork that has to run through that room, and the finance manager has a job to do when you sit down. And when you walk in already confident that the financing conversation is over, your guard drops. You won. That part's handled. So when he starts talking about protection products, extended coverage, gap insurance, you're in a different frame of mind than you were at the desk. You're relaxed. The hard part's behind you. Listen, if you're over 60 and you came in pre-approved, good. That was exactly the right move. Just don't let it tell you the conversation is finished. Before you sign anything in that office, say this: "I have financing in place. I'm willing to hear what you have, but I need a clean breakdown of every product before I sign anything." Not bundled into a payment, each one separately on paper. That sentence slows the room down. It should. The 5th thing is the one that's hardest to hear, because it's not a mistake, it's just who you are. You're pleasant, you're agreeable, you want the interaction to go well, and you're good at making people feel comfortable around you. On a car lot, that reads as a signal. Salespeople, and I'm speaking from experience here, not theory, are trained to read buyer posture in the first few minutes. How you respond to small talk. Whether you nod along, whether you say, "That's fair," before anything's actually been offered. A warm, agreeable buyer is someone who wants the social experience of this transaction to feel good. And that matters, because a buyer who's invested in the relationship having a positive feel is a buyer who finds it harder to push back. The pressure to preserve the good feeling in the room is invisible, but it's there, and it works. I'll say this plainly. I was trained to read buyers this way. I got good at it. When someone came in warm and easy to talk to, I knew something about how the conversation was likely to go. I'm not proud of all of it, but that's exactly why I can tell you now. I'm not telling you to be cold. An adversarial buyer often gets worse results. Salespeople are human too, and they respond to hostility the same way anyone does. What I'm telling you is to be pleasant and measured. There's a difference. When you sit down, something like, "I appreciate the time. I want to be upfront with you. I'm looking at a few options before I make a decision." Friendly, honest, and it signals that this deal has to earn you. That's a different conversation than the one that starts with you laughing at his jokes and saying everything looks great. The sixth thing is the one that costs the most, and it's the most common. You negotiate the monthly payment instead of the price. I understand why. You have a budget. You know what works for your life each month. It seems practical to talk in those terms. But here's what's actually happening when that becomes the negotiation. The store can hit your monthly number through any combination of variables: your down payment, your trade value, your interest rate, your loan term. All of those levers are in their hands. A longer term lowers the payment. A higher interest rate raises the total you pay over time. A product added to the back end gets folded into the monthly number so quietly you may not notice it's there. They can give you exactly the payment you asked for and still build a deal that works very well for them. I had a customer, I'll call her Dorothy. She came in mid-afternoon, alone, polite, prepared. She'd written her monthly number on a piece of paper and she put it on the desk. She was organized. She'd thought about this. She said, "I just need to stay under this number. That's all I'm asking." We hit the number. She drove home happy. I know what was in that deal. The term was extended. The rate was marked up to the ceiling the lender allowed. There was a warranty in the payment she hadn't specifically agreed to as its own line item. Every box on the store's checklist was filled, and her monthly payment was exactly what she wrote on that piece of paper. She got precisely what she asked for. That's the part that stays with me. You don't need me in the room. Here's what you do. When you sit down, you say, "I'm negotiating the price of the vehicle. Once we agree on the price, I'll work out the financing separately." If they push for a monthly number, you say, "I'll know if the payment works once I know the price." And then you hold that. The conversation will try to drift back toward monthly. It always does. Hold the position anyway. This isn't always done with malicious intent. I want to be honest about that. The math I'm describing is standard finance office math. But standard doesn't mean it's working in your favor. Intent doesn't change what shows up on the back end of your loan. The outcome is the same either way. Here's what all six of these have in common. Not one of them is a sign that you don't know what you're doing. Every single one is a normal human thing to do. Being practical about your budget, being honest about your timeline, being pleasant to the person across from you. The dealership business didn't get this good at reading buyers by accident. It got this good by watching millions of transactions and learning which behaviors could be worked with. Now you know which ones those are. So let's go back through them quickly. Don't give up your monthly budget. Negotiate price first. Just looking, no rush, hands them time, so don't volunteer your timeline. Keep the trade-in separate until the car price is settled. Your pre-approval is a good move, but it doesn't close the finance office door. Go in with your guard still up. Be pleasant, be measured, and let them know you're comparing options. And negotiate the price of the vehicle, not the payment. Always the price. You don't need to remember all six before your next car purchase. If you take one thing from this video, take the last one. Price first, not payment. That single shift changes the entire shape of the deal. And here's where I want to leave you. The people on that lot are trained professionals. That's not a criticism, it's just the reality of the environment. They're good at what they do. But knowing what they're trained to do puts you on level ground. That all this ever was, not an attack on the business, not a reason to be suspicious of every person you meet on a lot, just even ground. You deserve that going in. Before your next dealership visit, do three things. Write down your price ceiling, not your monthly number, your total number. Get pre-approved through your own bank first, and don't announce it the moment you walk in. And when the trade comes up early, say the line, "Let's settle on the car first." Practice saying it before you go. It's easier to say when you've already said it out loud. Remember that salesperson who excused himself for a minute? Now you know what was in that conversation. Go in knowing it too. If you want to know exactly what happens once you sit down in the finance office, what that room is actually designed to do, that's the next one.